Hey guys, it's me Matthew again. Today I'm going to be doing another audio. And this time, this particular story isn't based or inspired by any other story. It's purely my own. It's called A Tomcat's Happiness. And this one is a bit more easier for me to read this time. And this time it has a bit more additional audio sensations. And you'll see what I mean. But anyways, I truly do hope you all like this story. So please, if you like it, like, subscribe, press the loading bell down below. But if you're not new here, not subscribed, please like, subscribe, press the loading bell down below, as well as go over to my community posts. You don't know what you may find, as well as go over to check out my previous audio series known as Anime/Dragon Knight Unlimited. But anyways, let's move on to the audio story. Season 3, Chapter 1. It's been 10 weeks since Etalon and Atalante's birth, and they were ready to go on without Sabria being there to feed them. So we went up to the surface and headed to Sandra's house to drop them off at 10 p.m. at night. Sabria knocked on the door, then Sandra opened it and asked, Sabria, Sabor, where have you been? You had us all worried sick. And who are these two young ones? Sabria said, we'll tell you the story another day. But right now, this is Atalon and Atalante. We're leaving them in your care until further notice to protect them while we deal with business. Those vampire hunters have no idea what they started. Sandra said, oh no, you're both coming with me. I said, sorry, but they killed my mother. They tried to kill me, and most of all, my eyes turned a blood crimson red. They tried to kill my beloved Queen of Beasts, Sabria. I will not have them try to kill our kittens, our prince and princess. I will not. So you will let us go to put an end to this nonsense. Do I make myself perfectly clear? Sandra said with shock and fear. Yes, sir. Sabria said, thank you, Aunt Sandra. Here's everything you'll need to take care of them, and I know you have standby clothes for all ages as well as sizes. But anyway, see you when we get back. We love you. Take care of our babies. Bye. She waved her hand and Sandra waved hers. She was going to say something, but we had run off before she had a chance. We headed to the nearest bookstore and map shop to find out a general idea of where they could be. We even bought 3 solar-charged walkies that came with portable chargers in case of emergencies, plus they're waterproof. Sabria said, okay, let's see here. They're here, and according to the vampire history book of past known campsites, it should be here, but according to public police records of this area, there are 10 known vampire hunter campsites here, 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 and here, but the rest are unknown as of right now. So let's go to the past vampire hunter campsites as a start before we head over to the other 10. I nodded my head and we headed off. We checked 3 of 6 old vampire hunter campsites, but they were either turned into a historic landmark or turned into an actual campground, so we're heading to the fourth one to find it abandoned, or so we thought. It was in a forest that was very thick and part swamp that made it very hot even at night, but we managed to find it. As we approached, we saw someone coming out with a firelit torch. It was a woman who didn't look like a vampire hunter. In fact, she looked more like a bounty hunter more than anything else. Sabria snapped a tree branch, and the bounty hunter said, "Who's there? Show yourself." I sped up, grabbing Sabria, and got behind the bounty hunter. She asked, "So you're vampires, huh? Well, you two shouldn't sneak up on a woman who can get paid by delivering the heads to the vampire hunters." Sabria said, "We weren't sure if anybody was even over here, but at the very least, a vampire hunter or two for us to question so that we can end the vampire hunters in this country." She started laughing. "You're only young adults. You couldn't stop them even if you tried." We showed her our wings and she said, "Wait, you're beast royalty?" Sabria said, "So that's what our wings mean." "Okay." The bounty hunter asked, "So you didn't know?" "Well, you should know that there's a prophecy that dictates the end of the vampires or the vampire hunters or the end of both." Sabria asked, "What does the prophecy say?" The bounty hunter said, "I can't tell you here. The vampire hunters have ways to hide cameras." After she saw our wings, she seemed a little frightened of us and became more cooperative with us at her home. We walked into her house and she said, "Make yourselves at home." Sabria said, "Thank you. Now then, what's your name?" The bounty hunter said, "My name is Croatia," or through the Bounty Hunters League, the head deliver, but I had only one rule that kept me going, and that rule is to not take jobs that'll kill you or those who are protecting or abducting. Sabria asked, "Then why are you called the head deliverer?" Croatia said, "I'm only called that when the task I was given that involves me killing the target. Anyways, you're here to learn about the prophecy." A long time ago, a voice called out to Croatia, "Hey, Asha, where'd you put my clothes?" Croatia said, yelling, "Where else? Your closet, you idiot." The other voice yelled out, "Just because I didn't go to college doesn't mean I'm an idiot, Asha. Now, who are you talking to?" It was a woman who looked like either Croatia's mother or sister. Sabria said, "Our names are Sabor and I'm Sabria. It's nice to meet you, miss." The woman said, "Deanne, it's nice to meet you too, especially Sabor over here, with his cute ears and tail," she said excitedly, while hugging me from behind. Croatia said, "You're going to have to excuse Deanne here. She loves anything cute or adorable or anything that she can wear or eat for that matter. Also, he's a complete dud when it comes to gun accuracy, but is good at close combat and martial arts. But other than that," Diane ate Croatia and said, "Oh, shut up, Asha. You're so mean when you're being too honest." Croatia said, "Ow." Diane asked, "Anyways, why are you two cuties here for, She smiled like a cat. Sabria said, to learn about prophecy about us. We showed her our wings, and she said, oh, that prophecy. Okay, give me a minute. Now I believe I put it, here. She grabbed the book off of a shelf and said, here you go. You can read it to find out yourself, assuming you can read ancient Greek. Sabria said, sorry, but Dan said, no problem, I can read it. A long time ago, there was a war between werewolves, vampires, and hunters that hunted them both. This war lasted until the year 1586, but even though the werewolves became extinct, the vampires stayed hidden by hiding their fangs and interbreeding with humans as well as cats alike. The hunters never knew what happened to the vampires, so they thought they killed them all. Until World War I through World War II, they revealed themselves at the brink of those dreadful nights and world wars. There this prophecy became apparent. One king of angelic phoenix wings and one queen of nemelic wings shall rise or fall or lose the battle. The hunter shall rise or fall or lose the battle. The outcome to surpass an inevitable future. 4 wings shall be destroyed in order to die. 1 love, 2 lives. A hunter's death shall fall under the horizon. That's the prophecy that speaks of you two. Croatia said, in other words, without your wings at all times, and since it speaks only of the vampire hunters, I can train you both so you can kill them all in this country. Sabria asked, and you feel indebted to help us? Diane said, we both do. After all, we're vampires too. Chapter 2, our training. The morning struck and we were done eating our food. Training began. It started out as a VR tactical simulation training to real-life tactical training and weapons training in both VR and real life. There was even silent and physical training, meaning one hell of a workout and so much more. We did different versions of this every week. It was insane, but we got used to it in week 5. We then got started on planning out an operation to attack our country's vampire hunters' headquarters and figure out how to infiltrate. Sabria asked, so how are we going to break through their defenses and kill them all? Croatia said, by doing the storm technique that will kill anyone who comes out after the alarm goes off. And as they go out, we slowly move in until we reach the building, then go crazy but careful about killing them all except those who aren't trying to kill you, because we can use them to give a message to the other vampire hunters or just release them. Deanne said because they may not be vampire hunters, so they can be let loose depending on who they are in case if they're dangerous. Sabria said, okay, understood. Have you checked out these 10 areas, including the other 2 that have been abandoned? Croatia said, yes, I have, but they're just outposts, not actual headquarters of the vampire hunters, though we have been tracking their movements to see where it is. We may have a way to get through in this area here in this forest. Sabria said, Texas has the most dangerous forest ever, huh? How interesting, but smart. Do you know where the entrance is? Where you lost, who you've been tracking? Grace and Deanne said, we have an idea. Can't look over the conversation, but we know where we lost them. There are 10 entrances that are hidden in the mountain that is there, but we don't know how to get in. I said, allow me to deal with getting in on one of them. You just need to scale up the 9 exits to keep them from escaping. Croatia said, I have just a thing to make sure of that. She went to her room to grab something and said, I always bring these in case of emergencies or if the job requires them, but these go to the trick. Gracia had a piece of dynamite, and Sabria said, well, that should do more than enough, but do you have any concrete to finish the job? Deanne said, I own the company throughout the states, so you don't have anything to worry about. Sabria said, okay then, he was ready for a field trip. Gracia and Deanne laughed. Then Deanne said, well then, let's get packed and ready to go while I make a few calls. Sabria said, yes ma'am. Sabria and I helped Gracia as well as Deanne pack for our trip to Texas from Virginia. When we were done, we got in the military jeep and headed out. We ate some dried fruit on our way to Texas, but after an hour and 34 minutes, we stopped at a park called New Market Battlefield State Historical Parks. Sabria asked, hey Croatia, why are we going here? Croatia said, it's a road trip. It wouldn't be a road trip if we didn't have fun. Plus, it's only a hike. And said, yeah, plus everyone needs some fresh air from time to time. Sabria said, okay then, I won't argue with that. We drove into a parking lot space and got out. There were old white and brick red houses in a reasonable amount of space. There were even white picket fences, but overall a beautiful amount of space for a piece of American history. Sabria said, I haven't been here since Mom switched jobs. Croatia said, that is sad. Deanne said, well, that's good as long as you're having a good time. We're good. Because then we know we're not the only ones who are enjoying this place by ourselves. Sabria said, I understand. You just don't want us feeling left out. Gracia said, you got it. She smiled. Sabria said, well, there isn't very much here to look at in this big place. Deanne said, yeah, but let's walk around the rest of the ground before we continue on. Sabria said, okay. We walked for 15 minutes until we got back to the jeep and drove off. Almost 2 hours later, we drove into a place called Tinker Creek Greenway Holland's Trailhead. Deanne said, welcome to Tinker Creek Greenway Holland's Trailhead, Sabria. Sabria said, this place is a lot more beautiful than that old battlefield. Croatia said, it does, and we're going to run along the whole trail. Sabria asked, and how big is this place? Deanne said, oh, Sabria dear, we're going to run like normal folk so we can see and really enjoy the scenery. Sabria said, okay then, let's get going. They all laughed. Then we drove into a parking space and got out. Croatia said, okay, now in 3, 2, 1, go! We started running amongst the trail, enjoying the forest breeze and smell next to the creek. The forest was nice, beautiful, chilly, relaxing, calm, and overall a perfect day for a run. We turned every corner, staying on the trail until we all stopped to drink our waters before we continued. After 5 minutes, we began to run again. We passed bridges above us and across them. This place is magnificent. Even though we saw buildings for most of the run, we even passed the train bridge above us, but overall we were having a great time. The wildlife here was great. I could see so many prey who tempt me to hunt. I almost hunted a damn duck. After a mile in, we stopped at a seat and sat down for a break. Sabria asked, are you two enjoying yourselves? Croatia asked, are you kidding? Dan said, we're supposed to be asking you that question. And yes, we are. This place is so beautiful. I mean, look at the stream flowing. It's so beautiful that I want to be in it for a swim. Gracia said, for me, it's the sound of nature all around us, with the chilling breeze coming over our faces. She sighed, it's perfect. Sabria said, I'm glad. I take runs all the time at the forest where we live. Croatia asked, you're an athlete? Sabria said, leader of the track club and team. We've even won every tournament because of how both determined my team is and how much they look up to me for how fast I am compared to the other team leaders of the other schools who've lost to us. Dan asked, I'm guessing Sabor is just as fast as you or even faster? Sabria said, he's just as fast as me since we learn how to get faster from when one of us takes the lead to the point where we end up being neck to neck on the track. Croatia said, impressive, and this was before or after he turned you into a vampire? Sabria said, both actually. He even used a technique that I have been using since 2nd grade, but now that we have our counterweights, we can go even faster and take those sharp turns now. Deanne said, I guess so. They all giggled. Then Croatia said, okay then, let's keep going. We still have a bit more running to do before we get back to the Jeep. Abrea and said, okay. We ran again for almost 2 hours before we got back to the Jeep. Sabria said, that was a fun run. Croatia said, yet you both don't seem winded like Deanne and I. Sabria said, we've learned how to avoid it so we can run as far as we can without getting the option of the possibility of being captured. Deanne said, well, that makes sense. We're used to this. Sabria said, yep. He smiled, and Croatia said, well, let's get in the Jeep and get going so we can get to the next location. Sabria and Deanne said, okay. We got in the Jeep and drove off while we ate some food. We drove for 2 hours and stopped at a place nearby to sleep for the night that has a public bathroom to use for 24 hours. After we went to the bathroom, we ate our dinner, then we watched a movie on a projector facing the wall. The movie was called F9, but I didn't really care of watching it. I just slept in Sabria's lap the whole time. I don't even know what happened after that, but I just fell asleep. Chapter 3: A Run in the Morning, a Wildlife Adventure. I woke up to an alarm that was annoying for my ears at 9 a.m. I asked, okay, whose alarm is that? Because that alarm is annoying and loud. Gracia said, sorry about that. It's the only thing that'll wake me up. I used to get in trouble for oversleeping at home when it was time to go to school. I said, then have Deanne drive this thing while you sleep. Gracia said, the pet straps don't work enough for me to trust her to drive it. Plus, we've not had time to fix them yet. Dion said, I actually fixed them while you were training them. Croatia asked, and you didn't tell me last night? Dion said, I wasn't thinking about it. Sabrina said, okay, ladies, there's no need to get in a fight. What's done is done. And Croatia, please take note that C4 is very sound sensitive, so he can get easily annoyed when woken up so suddenly when he's still tired. But anyways, it's time to get going. Croatia and Deanne said, yes ma'am. We got out and got freshened up, then drove 16 minutes until we drove into a park called Pinnacle Park, Bristol, Tennessee. We drove into the driveway parking lot and got out. Sabrina asked, you two ready for a morning run? Croatia said, yep. Deanne said, you know it. Sabrina, dear. Sabrina said, then let's go. We ran on the trail with the woods on our left and the creek on our right. The place was beautiful, even more than the last one. The chill, calm morning air and the breeze felt amazing that I was enjoying the run more and more. There were animals everywhere just living their lives. There were leaves on the ground, but overall it was a beautiful place for a morning run. It was a little foggy, but it was only above the surface of the creek, so there wasn't anything to worry about. We ran for over an hour and ended up back at the Jeep. Croatia asked, so who's ready to get some breakfast at IHOP? Sabrina said, how about anywhere but there? They won't allow cats in there. Croatia said, oh, in that case, let's make some breakfast in the Chick. We have everything we need to make crepes. What do you want, cherry or blueberry? Sabrina said, cherry. And do you happen to have salmon or sabor to eat? Deanne said, here you go, sabor. Deanne gave me a salmon to eat. I smiled and said, thank you, Deanne. Deanne said, you're welcome. She smiled. After we were done eating, we got in our seats and drove off. We drove for almost 2 hours before we drove into the Knoxville Zoo. Sabria said, are there any tigers here? Deanne said, guess you'll have to find out. Sabria got excited and giddy when we got our parking place. We got out of the Jeep and walked over to the ticket booth in line for a couple of minutes. After we got our tickets, we walked in the zoo and began exploring. Gracia said, okay, let's be here on the map, and okay, let's check out the black bears first, then the cranes, and then the tigers. Sabria said, okay. We walked over to black bears to our right and a few yards forward. The black bears were just walking around. being lazy, sleeping, and one was trying to give this one lady a hug or attempting to bite her head off, but couldn't because of the glass barrier. We then walked over to the cranes over in the opposite way of the black bears. The cranes were a big bird that was smaller than an ostrich, but similar to a peacock, but very pretty. We walked over to the tigers. They were over at the glass barrier, and a tiger said, "Hey, you tomcat, you look cute," I said in our language. "Thank you, and you're beautiful yourself," she said. "Thank you. My name is Aria. What's yours?" I said, "S3-4. It's nice to meet you, Aria." Aria said, "It's nice to meet you too." One of the male tigers came over and asked, "Hey Aria, who are you talking to?" Aria said, "Hey Basher, this is a board. This is Basher." I said, "It's nice to meet you, Basher." Basher said, "It's nice to meet you as well," said Boar. "Hey Aria, why are you talking with him?" Aria said, "Because he looks cute, and he's a cat like us." Basher said, "Okay, but you're not trying to." Aria said, "Oh, gosh, no. I had you and your brother for that." She looked at Basher's forehead. I saw the other tiger sneaking up on Basher's side. I smiled, then said, "Well, anyways, I'd love to meet your brother Basher, or if he isn't already around." Basher sighed in a smile, said, "I already know where he is." "Isn't that right?" He jumped up at the other tiger, then continued saying, "Tanver." Tanver laughed and said, Okay, you got me. "Hi, your name is S3-4, correct?" I said, "It is, and it's very nice to meet you, Tanver." Tanver said, "Hey, well, anyways, food should be coming any time now, so if you don't mind, we'll be going into our cave now. Hope we see you again someday. Bye." Sabrina asked, "So where next?" Gracious said, "The next one is the lanyards, and they're this way." Sabrina said, "Okay." We walked back on the path and headed straight. After a couple minutes, we turned left at the fork, and there was the lanyards just swinging around in a breed of monkeys, scratching their butts, being rude to people. Horatio said, "Now the next animal is the tortoises, but let's get a bite to eat first, since there's a few places here in the kids' play zone, though we could see the nursing station." Sabrina said, "Let's eat, then go look at the tortoises. I've done enough nursing to even want to see that." Tian said, "Okay, well, let's get going then." When we got over there, the tortoises were huge and slow. After a minute, we walked past the bathrooms and headed over to see the snakes. There was copperhead snakes, corn snakes, and timber rattlers. One of the rattlers was looking at me, rattling its tail maraca and hissing at me, while it hissed right back, showing a fangs. The rattler then slithered away. What I'm guessing is it giving up, but I could be wrong. We went over to see the river otters, who were just swimming around, doing their own thing, being cute. We went over to the gibbons, and like the lanyards, to nobody's surprise, they did roughly the same thing. We then went ahead and went to see the red pandas. When we got over there, the red pandas were small but cute. We then went over to see the camels while we're on the west side of the zoo. When we got over there to see them, Spit was already flying at us. We did stick around to see them. Next was the elephants, and they were more friendly than those camels. We even got to feed them through their noses or trunks. We throw in the food out into their mouths.
Okay,
That was a little gross, but we might want to judge. I'm a vampire that drinks fish or bird blood before I eat them. We then went to see the rhinos, and all they really did was sleep, so we went on to see the zebras galloping around and having fun. We then saw the hornbills. They looked like a cross between a vulture and a toucan. They were interesting, but we went ahead to see the bat-eared foxes, and they actually looked like they should have bat wings to go with their bat color scheme. They did look beautiful like the other foxes I've seen, but they do look cool at least. We moved on to see the giraffes. They seemed like they were in the clouds to even care about people observing them, unless if they had food. We gave them some food, and man, their tongues were long, like their necks. It was crazy, but let's not talk about that. We went to see the baboons, and to no surprise, they were rude, so I went over to see the lions. The lion came up to me and asked in our language, "Hello, who are you?" I said, "My name is S3-4. And what's your name?" The lion said, "I'm Peppo. It's nice to meet you." I said, "It's nice to meet you too." The lioness came over and said, "Hello there, I'm Amara. What's your name?" I said, "My name is S3-4. It's very nice to meet you, Amara. So how long have you two been here?" Amara said, "Around a year for the both of us, but he was here before me." Peppo said, "Yeah, we had to figure things out in order for us to get along." Amara said, "I had to back a few times for getting too close to me." I said, "Well, that would have been a sight for me to see, but I take it that you've not been around females too much when you were younger." Peppo said, "Not really, not to mention we didn't know each other very well at first until a while ago." I said, "I see. Well, anyways, it was nice talking with you two. Bye." Peppo said, "Bye, Amar, what heck, Audiobook?" And said, "Bye, S3-4. I laughed, and then we went to see African painted dogs. When we got there, they looked like hyenas, but I knew they weren't. After a couple of minutes, we moved on to see the dukers. When we got there, the dukers looked pig-nosed, yet looked like a deer without any antlers, but not very interesting for an animal that's unique. We moved on to see the gorillas, and when we got over there, to no surprise, they are rude in a different way to monkeys, but overall still rude. After we were done, we went ahead to see the chimpanzees. When we got over there, they were quite different. They acted more civilized than any other chimp or monkey or ape out there in the world. After a couple of minutes, we moved on to see the bald eagles. As we got over there, we saw the bald eagles fly majestically, beautifully, and gracefully down to catch a fish to eat. Gracious said, "What a majestic sight." Dan said, "No kidding, that was beautiful." Spirit said, "I agree." We walked off to see the last animal in the zoo, and that is the red wolves. When we got there, they looked cunning, sneaky, good-looking, fur, and loyal. Sabria asked, so what's next? Croatia said, by looks of things, we head back on the road and go to Heritage Park. Deanne said, you think there's been more? Sabria said, I think everyone expects more than what is actually presented. But anyways, let's get going. Croatia said, agreed. It took 10 minutes for us to get there, and we are just now parking in the parking lot. Deanne asked, okay, now this is the last stop until we hit Texas, so are you ready to run, Sabria? Sabria laughed and said, I'm already gone with Sabor. We ran as fast as we wanted, while Croatia and Deanne were biting our dust. We had been running 550 steps every half mile, as when we looked back, we couldn't see Croatia or Deanne's, but we kept running. It took us 16 minutes to get back to the Jeep, but we ran another lap around in concern of Croatia and Deanne. 5 minutes in the second lap, we ran past Deanne and Croatia, which relieved us of our worry. It took the fourth lap around for Deanne and Croatia to finish their first lap. Croatia said, you are really fast. Deanne asked, you two did 4 laps around. We just finished our first lap. How are you two so fit? Sabria said, I guess it's because we're used to running that fast, I guess. But if I had to put it into technical terms, I'd say it's a combination of experience, vampire speed, as well as Laura and I learning from one another to increase our speed. Croatia said, you two are spectacular. Let's get going to Texas, Sabria said. Okay. We got into the Jeep and drove off to Texas. 10 hours later, we stopped in a store parking lot to sleep for the night after we ate our dinner, which was delicious, but we watched a movie before we all fell asleep. Chapter 4, Calm Before the Storm. We woke up and Deanne asked, can you please help me with buckling up Croatia for me, Sabria? Sabria said, sure, Deanne. They buckled up Croatia, and then Deanne got buckled in herself in the driver's seat, then asked, are you two buckled in? Sabria said, yes, ma'am. Deanne said, good, 'cause now we're going to Trinity River Trails Gateway Park South for a morning run. We drove off to Trinity Park, and it took us 34 minutes to get there, but we grabbed food at What a Burger first before we arrived there. We drove into the Trinity Park parking lot and got out of the Jeep when Deanne said, okay, you two close your ears. Deanne set Croatia's alarm, and 20 seconds later, it went off, waking Croatia. Croatia asked, what is, food. After Croatia was done eating, he came out and asked, I take it that you are ready to run this trail? Sabria said, yep. Croatia said, okay, then let's run this thing. Sabria said, okay. We ran at the same pace as Croatia and Deanne said, don't hold back on our accounts. Run as fast as you want until we get back to the Jeep. Sabria said, okay. Sabria and I sped up to go 550 steps a mile, which took us 15 minutes to do. It took us 2.5 hours to get exhausted and we took a break until we saw Croatia and Deanne. We waited for 20 minutes and we saw those two running fast right past us, so we began running again to catch up. When we got to the Jeep, we still outran them. Deanne asked, "How did you two still beat us?" Sabria said, "Because despite your improvements, we still learn from each other to get faster." Croatia said, "You two are in a league of your own." Sabria laughed and said, "I guess so, but anyways, we got an hour's drive ahead of us now before we can call it quits." Deanne said, "You're right, let's get going." We got into the Jeep and drove for 7 hours and 45 minutes before we got to Big Bend Park. When we got there, we drove around until we saw who Deanne called to help out. It was a man who looked like he'd seen some messed up stuff. He was wearing camel pants and shorts as well as the gear to go with it. He had a scarred up face and scarred up arms as well. He said, "Hey Deanna, long time no see. You sure you don't want to join back up with the Marines? We do miss you keeping the soldiers in line and on their toes." Deanne said, "I'm sure, big bro." She smiled, then asked, "Is everything in order, Maurice?" Maurice said, "They are, and nobody will be interfering with us because to the rest of the world, this place is closed to the public until a threat has been eliminated so that tourists can come and enjoy themselves again." Deanne said, "Good job, big bro." He winked at him. Maurice said, "Anything for my little sis. Anyways, that's my Jeep over there. So if you could follow me, I can take you to our base that we set up." Deanne said, "Lead the way." They giggled. Maurice got into his Jeep with a bird on the back and drove off into the woods. We followed Maurice for half an hour and we finally got to the base. We parked, got out of the Jeep, and Maurice said, "Okay, welcome to the base, and we have the area surrounded with explosives ready to be placed. So when do you want to get started?" Sabria said, "How about right now?" He said with that same look she gave to Isra months ago. That scared Isra a bit. Maurice asked, "You're Sabria, right? It's nice to meet you, and I'm a Marine. I don't scare easily, but I still get scared at the thought or attempt to push a girl to do their worst. So all I'm going to say is follow me then." We walked with Croatia, Deanne, Maurice, and 17 soldiers to the containment area. When we got there, Maurice said, "Okay, this is the area where the vampire hunters disappeared, so let's see if you really are who Deanne said you are." Sabria and I showed our wings and then put them in our field of vision, then used our vampire vision to see where the entrances are. We found all 10 of them, and with each one that was found, the appropriate amount of explosives were placed at the ready. Maurice asked, "Are y'all ready to go in there?" Deanne laughed and rhetorically asked, "When are we not, Maurice?" Maurice said, "Well, don't die in there, and once you go in, our radios can't get contact with you, especially after we blow the exits." Deanne said, "We won't." She kissed his cheek. Then we went inside. 5 yards in, they blew up the exits, and the place lit up with the fluorescent lamps glowing in the dark. The fluorescent lights were red, orange, yellow, and gray. They were a beautiful sight, but we continued on. Croatia said, "Hey everyone, come here, listen to this. Where it is dark, the bat is free, but where it is light, the bat is bound. When you hear my call, flee away from it, so you may fly. The blood of the deceased is the key for entry." Sabria said, "It's a riddle, and we need to follow the lights." Diane asked, "Why?" Sabria said, "Where it is dark, the bat is free, but where there is light, the bat is bound. The bat is us vampires, and where the bat is free means free to die." Croatia asked, "You figured that out all on your own?" Sabria said, "I got 100s on every riddle test in riddle class. Plus, history on vampires helps as well. So, let's move on." Deanne and Gracia said, "Yes, ma'am." We followed the fluorescent light to a medium-sized cavern that had caves all around in a circle. Sabria asked, "What was the second riddle, Croatia?" Croatia said, "When you hear my call, flee away from it so that you may fly." Sabria said, "Everyone get in the middle of the circle and be prepared for powerful gusts of wind." We got in the middle of the circle of the caves, and a minute later we heard what sounded like a woman crying out for help. Sabria said, "Okay, in 3, 2, 1, jump." Gusts of wind carried us 50 feet in the air to a landing pad that circles around the entire circle below. Sabria asked, "Did everyone land all right?" Carisha said, "Yes, ma'am." Deanne said, "Perfectly." I said, "I always land on my paws." Sabria said, "All right then, let's continue on." We walked through the fluorescent lit caves till we found what looks like a door with a small empty bowl in the middle of the door. At the center of the bowl there was a 4-sided sharp knife that attached to the bowl. Sabria said, "Everyone, we need to give this thing our blood." Dan asked in a panic, "What?" We looked at her seriously. Then she said, "Fine, let's get this over with." Sabria said, "Okay, take a corner, and in 3, 2, 1, push your hands in." The blades cut our hands, causing us to bleed until Sabria said, "Okay, that's enough." Our hands healed, and the entire floor shifted around. We weren't yet there. We heard the bowl pedestal make a noise, and Sabria said, "Guess we need to take the bowl with us." Croatia picked the bowl up and said, "Deanne, you should hold onto this while we go on." Deanne asked, "Why me?" Croatia said, "Because I need to read stuff on the walls without something weighing me down. Plus, Sabria knows what she's doing, and Sabor has to be available to help her when she needs it." Deanne sighed and said, "Fine, let's go." Chapter 5, The Final Test. I saw darkness. I'm waking up. Wait, where am I? How did I get here? A familiar voice spoke out. "Wakey, wakey, you two. Breakfast is almost ready." I saw Sandra waking me up, but is she talking about Sabria or someone else? I looked over and saw, wait, is that Atalante? Then that means I'm seen out of. Atalante said, "Atalante, let's go and eat breakfast. I'm starving." She giggles like the little girl she is. Hearing Atalante's voice put my mind at ease, but I heard a voice that said, "Okay, Atalante, I'm coming." Etalon's voice. I'm at full ease now. I think it's time for me to wake up for real now. I woke up where I fell asleep and I saw Sabria waking up. She asked, "Did you see what I saw, Sabor?" I said, "I saw through the eyes of our son Etalon." "What about you, Sabria?" Sabria said, "I saw through the eyes of our dear daughter Atalante." I said, "At least we know they're safe and doing well." Sabria said, "I'm very glad they're doing great as well." I said, "Well, anyways, we should continue on after we eat." I smiled. Sabria said, "Yeah, I agree." Deanne asked sleepily, "What's going on, you two?" Sabria and I said, "We're going to make breakfast." We smiled. Deanne said, "Okay. Wake us when it's done, okay?" Deanne fell back asleep and we silently giggled and began to make breakfast. After we were done preparing our food, we set Croatia's alarm and then woke up in 3, 2, 1. Croatia said, "I'm up." "Oh, food is ready." Deanne's head still a little tired. Yippee. After we were done eating, we moved on to find any hints to get to the vampire hunter's headquarters. Croatia said, "I'm not finding anything over here." Deanne said, "Me neither." Yes, asked, "Well, what now?" I said, "I have an idea." I brought my wings out to cloud my vision and used my vampire vision. I looked around and then I found the riddles. I said, "I found the riddles. They're right there." I pointed at the wall and I saw a flicker of light looming off my finger and hit the spot I was pointing, lighting it up like a glow-in-the-dark glow stick. Sabria asked, "How did you do that?" I said, "I wasn't even trying to do that. I don't know how I did that in the first place." Croatia said, "No matter how he did it, what matters is that I can see the riddles now." A mirror on the wall is a reflection of what you have done in the past. That's it. Just one riddle. Sabria sighed and said, "We need to do the opposite of what we've done already, but this time we follow the dark paths because they'll be the only ones not lit up." Croatia said, "Lead the way then." We followed Sabria through the paths. Then when we hit the end, we found an empty pedestal. Croatia said, "Deanne, I think you need to put the bowl on the pedestal." Deanne said, "I was tired of holding this thing anyways." Deanne placed the bowl on the pedestal and the floor shifted again on the other side. We found a giant maze. Croatia said, "Those who enter don't always make it on the other side, but those who do can't hear the beginning, only the future. Or if you find that you are youthful, you may pass with those who you bring, but if not, doom will find you with its roaring despair." Sabria said, "Well, since Sabor and I are here, you two don't have anything to worry about. Plus, we may have a new friend after we get through this maze on the wall." We followed Sabria's lead through the maze until we hit the end of it, but we saw something guarding the exit. It was a no way. A saber-toothed tiger. I approached and said, "Hello, I'm Sabor. What's your name?" The cyber-saber-tooth tiger said, Doom, and you are youthful. You may pass with those you are with. I asked, can you please escort us? Doom said, I can't. I must stay here and guard the exit. I said, you're free to come with us. We will protect you if you come with us. Doom laughed and said, I don't need hectic. I'm not an ordinary saber tiger. I'm a cursed one that is unable to die or be killed. You see, a long time ago I died in this maze while it was being constructed, and yet my brain was still working enough that it was moving my front two limbs until it stopped working. Once it hit this very spot, I was brought back to life by a man called the Vampire Hunter King or General. I asked, what does he look like, or at least his successor? Doom said, I don't know what his successor looks like, since this place was made a long time ago before the Messiah was born in a human body. At least, of my knowledge, the others don't speak to me much, unlike you, unlike today. I said, well, if you change your mind, he'll be happy to have you by our side. Doom said, like I said, I'm cursed. I said, no, you're not. You have a cybernetic body. You can move to kill anybody who isn't on your side. Doom said, literally, error, unidentified emotions, error, reboot in all systems. Hello, I am Doom. Who are you, a master? I said, I am your brother Sabor. This is my queen of beasts, Sabria, and these are our companions, Coration and Diane. Doom said, it's nice to meet you all. What would you like me to do? I asked, could you please escort us through the path behind you, Doom? Said, indeed, brother Sabor, I can. Follow me. We followed Doom through the fourth area of riddles until the end of the fifth area of riddles, where he couldn't figure out how to open the door. Sabrina said, let's see, does anyone have paper and pencil? Horatio said, I do in my bag here. She gave Sabrina the papers and pencil. Sabrina said, thank you. Now let's see. She wrote down the riddles as well as the symbols before and after them. She put the sheets of paper together and asked, light please. Dan turned on a flashlight and Sabrina said, looking around, okay, if I'm right, it should be, here. Well, let's test if this works. Sabrina pressed one of the symbols on the door, and it moved, then the floor shifted. We saw the vampire hunter's base ready to be invaded. To be continued. 12 hours earlier, Wiki YouTube breakfast is almost ready, Sandra said. Atalante said, Atalante, let's go and eat breakfast. I'm starving, Atalante said. Okay, Atalante, I'm coming. Atalante shook his head and asked to himself, what the was that? Father? Atalante said, I think I saw Mother. They both said, we should go find them. Their stomachs growled. Atalante said, after we're done eating. They laughed, then went to get breakfast. While they were eating breakfast, Ellie asked, are you two really going to look for them? Atalante finished his food and said, we have no choice. We saw them in our eyesight, even though they're far away. Kelly asked, can you sense them? Do you even know where to go? Adelante finished her food and said, if we can see them in our eyes, then we are able to sense them. Plus, we haven't seen them since they dropped us off here to protect us. Adelante said, and now that we've grown up so fast to the point that we know how to use our wings, we have to help them out somehow. Adelante said, that's why we have to go now, to assist them, our mother and father. Atalon and Adelante said, together, so that we can work together as a family. Callie said, well then, tell your father I said that if you two weren't capable, that we would have stopped you, okay? She winked. Adelon said, we will, Aunt Callie. Callie said, stay safe. No, stay alive, you two, and give those who try to kill your family hell. Adelon and Adelante laughed and said, we will. Adelon and Adelante took their plates to wash them. Then Sandra asked, if you two are leaving, you better take these. They helped me and my twin parents in their battles as veterans. They'll give you both good luck while you're both out there helping each other out. Adelante asked, what are they? Sandra said, this bracelet helped my mother, and this golden fire-coated knife my father. She gave the knife to Adelon and the bracelet to Adelante. Sandra said, may they always protect you and keep you alive. Now come here and give your Nana a hug. They hugged each other. Then Adelon said, see you when we get back. And please don't set up the party until you hear from us that we're coming back home. Sandra said, I will try to remember that. He smiled and closed the front door behind them. Adelon said, okay then, let's go find mother and father. Adelon and Adelante's wings came out as fiery nebula wings, then broke the sound barrier, blasting off to Texas. But let's get back to Croatia, Deanne, Zabor, and I asked, so who's ready to storm this place? Croatia, Deanne, and Sabria raised their hands. Then I said, well then, let's give them hell. We sped up, circling the vampire hunter's base, killing off anyone wearing the vampire uniform crest. The alarm went off, and a quarter of an entire army in the vampire hunt. The soldiers came rushing out, but none of them stood a chance of us going this fast, while Tomb was carrying them up with nothing but meat, bone powder, and blood. We cut through them in seconds until we hit the building. No one was coming out, just hiding inside. Sabria said, okay everyone, this is the only way in or out. Doom, stay here in case if any vampire hunters come out, in case if they have a secret exit out of this place, kill them. Now the rest of us, we're going in to kill whoever is inside. Now then, let's go. We went inside the base and washed each other's backs. Half an hour earlier, Atalon said, I believe this is the place. Atalante said, wait, I smell something. Then someone came out and said, freeze. A bunch of Marines came out, guns pointing at Atalon and Atalante's heads. Marius came out of the shadows and ordered, wait, put your weapons down. Then he asked, are you two lost? Atalante said, no, we're just looking for our mother and father. Atalon said, we know they're in there, and if you or any of your squad tries to stop us, well, we won't kill you, but break your finger so that we can go find them. Marius laughed and said, I'd like you to wait. You two look like you two wouldn't happen to be the children of Sabria and Sabor, would you? Atalon and Atalante brought out their wings. Then Atalon said, I don't know, you tell me. Marius said, well, as much as we would love to help you both, we blew up the only exits. Well, there's no way for us to help you get in even if we tried. Atalon sighed and said, all that rubble is nothing to us. Atalon reached out his hand and then raised it, causing the rocks blocking the entrance to lift into the air. Atalon said, see you when we get out with our family. Maria said, stay alive, you two. Atalante said, oh, we will. They went inside the cave of riddles, and Atalon closed off the exit behind them. Present. This place was lit up, but so far we've seen no one. Sabria said, this is weird. Where is everyone? There's no way we killed them all. Croatia said, agreed, this has to be a... Diane stepped on a pressure plate, causing the floor to open. Trap. We fell down into a cage, and the roof closed back up. The room was dark for a moment. Then the room lit up, blinding us for a moment, and we saw an army of vampire hunters standing before our eyes. One of them walked up laughing and said, well, 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 look who the vampiric cat drags in. 2 vampire veteran bounty hunters, and 2 destined to wipe us vampire hunters out. Oh, how perfect. Croatia said, shut up, you bastard. The vampire hunters said, oh, and why would I do that, you bloodthirsty bitch? You can't do anything about it. You're trapped here forever, and you can't escape. I asked, are you sure about that? 'Cause I think you are underestimating us. I mean, after all, I have the wings of fire. My wings came out, and I brought them in front of me, focusing on the part of the cage, causing it to melt quickly. The vampire hunter asked, do you really think that'll work? My wings fire blasted through him, but I could hear him laughing. You really think that was really me? Oh, hell no. I was prepared for this. Sabria dematerialized the TVs around us, revealing a water cage. Sabria said, well then, let's try this. Sabria created a nebula dome and dematerialized the clear plastic-like walls, causing the water to come in hard, but the nebula dome was absorbing the water. Once the water was gone, Sabria took down the dome and said, be careful, everyone, you don't want to slip and fall. The vampire hunter said, okay, if that didn't work, then how about this? Deanne took out the speakers he was walking through, but a 10 feet thick titanium wall rose up. Then Deanne said, annoying bastard just loves to run his mouth. Horatio said, agreed, but what now? That's titanium and 10 feet of it on all sides. How are we supposed to get through it? Sabria said, we'll think of something, hopefully. 3 minutes earlier, we're here, said Atalante said, well, let's go on in then, Atalon. Atalon, fly right now, she said, concerned. They flew up into the sky and saw doom rushing under them. Atalon yelled out and said, hey, we're the children of our father and mother, Sabor as well as Sabria. Doom said, then come down here and prove it. They flew down gently and landed. Doom asked if you two could please extend your index fingers on your dominant hands. I can nibble them to draw out blood from the both of you so that I can do a DNA test on you both. They said, okay. They extend out their index fingers. Doom then nibbled their fingers on two metal fangs and drew some blood. Doom analyzed their blood, then said, well, you've proven that you're their children, but how you help me make sure there's no way for these vampire hunters to escape? Atalon and Atalante said, well, that's easy, but you are coming with us. Doom's head as you wish. Atalon and Atalante created a dome stronger than titanium. They walked into the building and used their wings to enhance their vision. Atalante said, I found our mother and father. Looks like they're trapped with whoever those two are. Atalante said, that's good, but do they know they can't escape that place? Atalante said, they clearly don't since they haven't tried. Atalante said, guess you'll have to help them out while Doom and I were looking for these vampire hunters as well as their leader. Sound good, Atalante? Atalante said, I'm fine with that. I hit to meet up with our parents, Atalante and Roggins. See you in a bit, Atalante. Atalante said, likewise. See you when I get back from helping them. Atalante said, well then. See you then, Doom. Let's go. Doom said, understood. They walked off to find the vampire hunters and the leader while Atalante stayed. Present. Courageous said, we have to figure out how to get out of here one way or another. Atalante disintegrated the roof, coming down landing on her feet, then said, out of the way. Sabria and I said in surprise, Atalante? I continued, we thought you were at Andra's place. And where's your brother, Atalon? Atalante said, he and Doom are taking care of another issue. Also, you know you can do this, right? Atalante extended her hand out, disintegrating the 10 feet thick titanium walls. Sabria said, we're only discovering what we're capable of, and I see that you're a bit more aware of what you're capable of compared to us, your parents. We're proud of you two. She smiled. I said, yeah, but anyways, let's go assist Atalon and Doom with finding the vampire hunters and their leader. Atalante said cheerfully, yes, sir. We ran to the staircase door in front of us and went down to the last basement floor. When we came out through the door, we saw a hallway leading to a door where both Atalon and Doom were waiting in front of. Atalon said, hi, Mother. Hi, Father. Long time no see. Sabria said, hi, Atalon. Are they behind that door? Atalon said, indeed. I said, well then, let's finish this. My eyes turned a blood crimson red, and so I opened the door and saw the vampire hunter who loves to run his mouth. We all walked through the doorway, and he said, well, looks like the whole family is here to die. Atalante said, time my butt. I should only kill the vampires that go after human blood, not every single one. Atalante asked, who are you anyway? He laughed and said, I'm the leader in case you haven't already figured it out. Any person or creature with vampirism in their blood needs to die. I said, we only drink fish or avian blood. I even rejected human blood before I was adopted by my beloved Queen of Beasts, Sabria. The leader said, that may have been true, but you still turned her into a vampire. I said, she asked me to turn her if it's the only way to save her from dying. I even promised her I would do it as a last resort. The leader yelled out, it doesn't matter, you're all vampires who need to die. I don't care about your reasoning for turning someone, or if you don't drink human blood at all, or even if that vampire is a family member, or even if I became one. Avalon said, I feel so sorry for you, all of you, especially since we're going to have to kill you unless you join us or leave and not come back. One of them spoke out, saying, if we do that, we have to kill ourselves, so we can't do that. The leader asked, did you really think that would work? Delon said, I thought that would lower the amount of people we would have to kill, so that those who fled would be spared. The leader said, a merciful vampire, how interesting. How old are you and your sister? Adelon said, 5 or 6 months old, but that doesn't matter. You all made your choices, and now it's time to die. We split up while Dean was tearing the vampire hunters to coop in his path. The leader said, stand your ground and kill them all, he ordered. There had to be thousands of them, but no more than past 10,000 of them. We used our wings to go faster, faster, and faster to kill as many as possible, but when there was only 20, it disappeared when the light went out. Chapter 3, The Battle of the Ages. When the lights turned back on, they were gone. I asked, who are you? 'Cause you're no ordinary people. The leader said through the speakers, we're what some would call ghosts, enhanced, cyborgs, terminators, athletes, or even the self-experimented. I said, I take it that the last one is the most likely explanation, but I bet the situation is different for the other 19 of you. The leader laughed and said, well, you're a smart one for someone who is submissive to their mate. I said, I was raised by people around me who I trust, both human and cat like myself, or similar to me. Sabria was just the one who happened to get my attention to the point of her adopting me. The leader said, how interesting. Anyways, you can find 5 of us in the next rooms in front of you. The wall opened up. You can find me at the end with 4 of my top-ranked companions. S.X.S if you dare. Horatio killed the speakers, cameras, and any bugs that might be in the room so that we can have a private conversation. Sabria asked, so why are you here? Atalante said, we saw you in our eyes, seeing what we're seeing and probably hearing what we are saying as well. Athlon said, so we felt that we had to help you 2 or 5. Now, since you 3 were accompanying our parents, Gracia said, we're happy to help them. Alon said, and we are thankful for that. But, Alante said, we only came because we felt that we would help them and work together as a family. I said, okay, as long as you 2 stay alive, it's fine with me. Sabria said, Same here, and we'll have a party after this is all done. But anyways, I said the first 5 are Gracia, Deanne, and Dunes. Next are Atalon and Atalantes. The next one is Sabria and I. Then we take the last 5 together as a team. Deanne said, "We're fine with that." I said, "Good, then let's go in this thing." We walked through the opening in the wall, then the opening behind us closed, and a new opening opened before us. One of the 5 asked, "So what are you waiting for? Come get us." Gracia said, "We're your opponents, so let them go." The one that spoke said, "Go ahead, right this way." An opening opened up on our right, so we ran through, and the opening closed behind us. A new opening opened up in front of us, and we saw 5 vampire hunters in front of us. I asked, "Ready to show your parents you can take care of yourselves?" And Atalon said, "Oh, Atalon, hey, finish, yeah." They said together, "We're ready to show what we can do." Chapter 4, the end of the line. Atalon and Atalante brought out their wings and sped up, circling them. The 5 tried to jump in their own way, but they found that they can't move. Atalon and Atalante moved closer in a tighter circle that was getting tighter every second. Then a flash of light came in our sight to see that our children stopped. Atalante asked, "So you two ready to kill your 5? The 5 vampire hunters behind and fell to pieces in a bloody mess. We said, "Yeah, we're ready." An opening opened in front of us and behind. Croatia, Deanne, and Tim ran over to join us. Deanne said, "Damn, you two are quick." Atalon said, "We are half vampire children of the fastest athletes in the country." Croatia said, "Anyways, it's your turn to kill the next 5. I said, "Yeah, let's get on that." We walked through the opening in the wall, and a new one opened up to us fight who we need to kill. Sabria and I and give the 5 in front of us a chance to defend themselves, ending them quickly, vaporizing them. Sabria and I said, "Okay, together now, let's go." The next opening opened up to a staircase leading down. So we went down as fast as we could. When we got to the bottom, we were opened up to a cavern bigger than where Sabria and I were living for a bit. It was a beautiful, more flush with vegetation, water, animal life, and more. It even had enough natural lighting that our cavern lacked. The leader and his companions were on top of ruins. The leader said, "Well, you're all here, and there is plenty of space to fight an epic battle of the ages." I yelled, saying, "That's enough. It's time for you to die for trying to kill my family and I. No matter how this ends, we will not lose." The leader said, "Well then, let's begin in 3, 2, 1, go." We all sped up, clashing abilities, athleticism, enhance, minds, cybernetics, and lives. My family and I took on 4 of the vampire hunters with the leader, while one of the vampire hunters stayed to fight with Croatia, Deanne, as well as Dune. The vampire hunter leader and his companions were just as fast as us. We were clashing fiercely until we all got knocked down. I said, "Not bad, but I still have a lot more in me than that." Vampire hunter leader said, same, but you're only delaying the inevitable. The vampire hunter leader ran at me, but Sabria had kicked one of the leader's companions out of. They got back up and came right back at us, but we flew up. We tried to disintegrate them, but they dodged it. We were fighting each other blow for blow to almost no end until the four of us had enough. I yelled out saying, "Enough! It's time to finally end this." Sabria, Atalante, together now. The three vampire hunters and their leader came running at us, preparing for our combined attack. We used our combined power by siphoning off each other's power and unleashing a fiery blood-licking flame that consumed them to nothing. I said, "Come on, let's check up on the others." We flew over to the ruins where the others were. When we got there, the vampire hunter was a pile of goop. Sabria asked, "You three okay?" Courageous said, "Yeah, we're fine. Tian and I just had this guy to do." I said, "We saw what you did to him, even the pile of goop before us." I sniffed the air and said, "I thought we'd turn you into nothing, you bastard." I shot out the flame at a spot of the ruins, and the vampire hunter leader showed up flying in the air, landing on his feet, then said, "I was actually blown away by your combined blast. Beautiful and both burning hot to cold, by the way." I said, "Oh, shut up already. Croatia, the end. Doom, Atalon, and Atalante. This time for real. It's time to bring this to an end." The vampire leader began to laugh and said, "Again, you can't defeat me. What don't you get about that?" I said, "Well, if we can't obliterate you, then we'll do it a different way." Atalon, Atalante, they said, "Understood." Atalon and Atalante created a barrier around us within enough distance to keep him from getting blasted off again. I said, "Croatia, Diane, circle him as fast as you can. Doom, get ready to turn him into goop in case if we miss. Everyone else, one more time." The vampire hunter leader said, "Bring it on." The vampire hunter leader tried to step back, but he found that he was surrounded by a barrier. He asked, "You really want to kill me, do you?" I said, "While gathering power with my family. Not want to, have to. Because if you don't die, we can't live knowing we have a constant target on our backs. And so, we can't allow that." We unleashed all our power at the vampire hunter leader, expanding the barrier inside the barrier while shrinking it to keep the nebula-like fire inside until it had disappeared. Atalon and Atalante obliterated the barriers. Then I said, "Looks like we're free to go home now." Rachel said, "Looks like." Diane said, "This adventure was fun." Sabria said, "I'm just glad that we'll finish my homework in time for graduation, and on top of that, having a family of my own to take care of." I said, "Well, in any case, let's get out of here and make a phone call to Andreas so that she knows we'll be on our way home." Sabria said, "Agreed. Come on, Atalante." They said, "Okay." Chapter 5. Ending. When we got out of there, the Marines and Marius took us home, despite the military songs they sang in unison. Before we had our party, Sabria worked on all of her homework that Sandria collected for her or we were taken to court, we'd be asked some questions. We answered them truthfully to the dime, and we got reward at the end of it for defeating this country's rogue vampire hunter group. We got a Brea her diploma, Atalon and Atalante's birth certificates, as well as tax relief for our family bloodline. We even got a building that we could use to make money in. When we got back home from court and got inside at 8 p.m., in the afternoon, the lights turned on, then everyone came out saying congratulations. The music turned on and we said laughing, "Thank you everyone, now let's party." The war is over for now. We have our children Atalon and Atalante. We have our friends, no, our family. But now it's time for the story of my happiness to come to a close. Because after all, a new story is about to begin. This is A Tomcat's Happiness. The end.